Hi, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. Thank you for subscribing. And if you just happen to find me from scrolling around or heard about me and you like what you see in here, I hope you'll help me out and hit that subscribe button. So, yeah, the media strikes again, and not in a good way. We should probably always be talking about the media more and how they've let us down. This time it's CBS and Norah O'Donnell. I like Norah, but I think she let us down in a 60 Minutes interview with Trump. Remember, Trump got a lot of money from CBS from 60 Minutes when they just lightly edited last year an interview with Kamala Harris, mostly for time, not for substance. And now they have heavily edited this interview that Norah did with Trump to cover up his decline and his lies. And no, she didn't push back. There's a difference, I guess you could see on YouTube and other places, the actual raw, real interview versus what actually aired. And Norah O'Donnell has now caved to the new leadership at CBS, either, out in the open was told or just kind of knows that Bari Weiss now, the right-wing woman who now has to have apparently a lot of expensive security just for running a network. Again, remember when I talked about how Stephen and Katie Miller and others in the Trump administration now have to feel the need to live on military bases for security? We've never had this before. If you're feeling threatened, it's because you know that you're doing something very, very wrong that's destroying this country. And that goes for Ms. Bari Weiss, by the way, the same. So Norah O'Donnell basically threw in the towel as a journalist and let Trump get away with all of this and went along with CBS editing the interview. The same reason Trump was able to get all this money from them. Our mainstream media created him, and they are now, helping him along. He now owns them. So yeah, our media is dead. We have at least so something is breaking through, because the majority of Americans do blame Trump and the GOP for the government shutdown. But that's, I think, by a 10-point margin, as I mentioned yesterday or the day before here. It should be much wider, but Democrats are not fighting back. If the information, if the truth and the fact checking is seeping out, it's because of channels like mine, it's people like Marc, Elias, it's people on social media, people with their YouTube channels and their podcasts and their Substacks. People go and one-on-one. We have individual senators and House members, mostly senators, out there doing their own thing with media and other voices. But because Democrats in Congress will not facilitate a daily fact-checking briefing, and of course Chuck Schumer could just wave the magic wand, snap his fingers, and it's done. Call me. I can have it up and running in 4 days, and we'll fix the rest later. But we could have it functional and have a first briefing by the end of this week. And it doesn't cost that much. And I guarantee you the numbers would be different. Now, Trump's approval is, I think, at 37%, and his disapproval is way in the 60s, higher than ever. But he owns the media, and he knows that. And he knows that for whatever reason, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are rolling over for him, just like Merrick Garland did. Okay? He knows. Trump has been able to get powerful people to roll over for him his entire life. Think it isn't happening here? So now CBS is lost to us. Journalism is dead. That's why it makes it even more important that we have independent journalists. And I mentioned before, over on Blue Sky, our friend is at Chat Jazz, ChatTTGJAZZ. It's company's Verity. He's an expat living overseas in Germany. He was a national security guy with highly classified everything, all the clearances, all the security clearances. He's an expert. And what he's now doing is culling together news stories from like Europe and other places around the world to show us what the rest of the world is saying about America and Trump and Republicans, because our own media, we don't know what we don't know if our media isn't telling us. It's, sometimes we can point to the media and we're catching them, just like, like our friend Marc Elias at Democracy Docket did, watching the raw interview and then saw how much CBS edited out. Trump was incoherent, lying, getting stuff wrong, and he wasn't fact-checked in real time. Now, they did some attempts to kind of break away and fact check him to make it look good, but no. And you know what? I don't think the media should allow for these things to happen. They should promise completely unedited interviews, no matter what. No matter what. Now, when I work with clients, whether they're CEOs or candidates, um, and in crisis communications, the first thing I say is always do your interviews live. Insist on it. And if you're the press secretary or the chief of staff and you're negotiating these things, insist on live interviews. And people think that's counterintuitive. It's like, well, why would you want that? What if you mess up? Well, here's the thing. If you're in a crisis communication situation, the media is probably not going to do for you what Norah O'Donnell of CBS just did for Trump and what all the media now seems to be doing for Trump. The old rules don't apply. I always said do it because that way they can't edit it in a way to make you look bad. And never repeat a negative. They can't quote you on what you don't say, right? So going live, I always thought was better for the politician, the CEO, whomever, because that you can control the agenda to a degree. You can say what you want to say, present your evidence, present your talking points, your thoughts, your justifications, your agenda, whatever it is. So in this case with Trump, it's kind of the reverse. They edited it to help him. And the crisis is that he's a liar. He's doing things that are unconstitutional and illegal. Okay. And he is clearly suffering from very rapid mental decline. Our media is not going to show us that. So they did the reverse thing of what, like I said, when I advise people when you're doing an interview, insist on going live because that way they can't edit it to hurt you. Trump has the media so in his pocket that they are now editing his interviews to help him. That's usually not what you get with political media. So now that things have flipped that much, I want to make that point. The media has flipped from what they've always done. So we don't know what we don't know because we know they're not doing their job, but we're still not used to this in America, and we still don't have a grasp on it. So we got to finally get our eyes open. In the CBS interview, they edited it to protect Trump. Not just for time or whatever, like they did with Kamala Harris. They are so afraid of him because he sued them and they caved. They capitulated rather than stand their ground. Then now they're going overboard to do for him what he falsely accused them for doing for Kamala Harris last year. That's why I want to mention my friend over on Blue Sky. He was on Twitter, but he posts these things. It's at Chat Jazz. He's also the guy that does my clips for my podcast that I have over on Patreon when I do interviews, weekly interviews. It's by the same name as this, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. It's by subscription. So our media has capitulated, and we have to find other ways to get the truth. And Democrats in Congress are not going to help us present that truth and do the fact checking. Remember, it almost seems quaint now how our complaints were that the media isn't really doing any investigating. They're just doing the he said, she said. You've heard this a lot where they say, if one person says it's raining outside and the other person says it's not raining outside, it's the media's job to look out the freaking window and tell us if it's raining or not. Tell us the truth. I don't even expect them to do that anymore. They're so far gone. Okay? Just the he said, she said. And we know the she said behind the lectern in the White House press briefing room. We know what she is, Caroline Leavitt. We got to have a he said on our side, or she said, whoever. I think Pete Buttigieg would be the great guy, but Tim Ryan, but we need it, and we're not going to get it. If we don't have it by now, there's a reason, and it's not a good reason. And I'm disappointed in our activist Democratic senators who are great on their own, but they won't take this to their leader in the Senate, to Schumer, and demand it. Or find a workaround. And Amy Klobuchar could do that. She has a policy and steering committee. They could do this. I don't even know what else they do. So this would be a good way to spend their money and their time. And it would be a congressional function. So therefore, it would be the beat of the thousands of press in the House and Senate press galleries. That would make it harder for Bari Weiss to join the likes of Rupert Murdoch, Jesse Waters, Sean Hannity, the idiots at Fox, who I think are traitors for what they're doing. Oh, by the way, yeah, Bari Weiss is trying to get Brett Baer to leave Fox and go to CBS, and Scott Jennings at CNN to leave CNN and go over to CBS. So she's trying to make it into a one of the big three would be out in the open, a Fox News, pro Trump, pro MAGA, destroy America, lying, sleazy, editing the videos, editing interviews for Trump operation. CBS is gone. They're dead. Write them off. Okay. And I'm not saying this, oh, I'm angry and out of revenge. I'm saying, first of all, the tactic is not bad to boycott them, but they're no longer news. And I think that we need to spread that word far and wide. And we are losing actually anybody that could be news. Now, I think that we, again, giving up the one thing you could do as Democrats, a daily fact checking briefing that would be carried by media. And I've explained this several times how you fly over the head of the national media. Again, those thousands of reporters in the House and Senate press galleries and the radio and TV news galleries. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill as press secretary and communications director. I kind of know how these things work. Criminal negligence, the Democrats aren't doing it. And we are getting to the point where we're thinking, okay, are they complicit? Kind of like with Merrick Garland. And we don't even have anybody addressing it on a national scale, on a big scale. But think about it, presenting that content to all the other media so that Bari Weiss's CBS doesn't have the kind of impact that the big three have had in the past. And that's what has to happen. That is what has to happen. Because this is very serious, very serious. And I think that there should be lawsuits brought for this. We can't back down. We cannot give up. We cannot give up. We have to fight back with fire. I noted too there was a poll. Let me see if I can find it. It had Barack Obama, beating Donald Trump in a head-to-head in 2028 by a substantial margin. So if Donald Trump thinks that he's going to find a way to run for a third term, yes, Democrats first need to fight it, but then you got to give it the program and say, okay, if we can't control you from doing this hugely unconstitutional thing, we're going to do it too. And I hope that former President Barack Obama would go along with it. Now, he apparently has now committed to being out there speaking out against Trump a lot more. Thank you. Thank you. And then if the, how would Republicans do that? How can they justify allowing Trump to run for a third term, but not Barack Obama? So fight him. And then when Trump backs down, then Obama can back down. But do not cede this space to Republicans. Cede, C-E-D-E. Do not do it. We've been doing it for 10 years. And people say we've been fighting back. No, we haven't. Not enough. There's always more we can do. We haven't done a fraction of what can be done. We haven't done a fraction of it. Now, I do think that everybody now knows that we each have our own role. We each have our own power, rather than just writing checks to the people that entertain us with, big negative ads that never actually run on TV to elect Democrats. Just ads on Twitter so you open the wallets and help them build their generational wealth. Hopefully we're beyond that. Hopefully we are beyond that. But I wanted to pop on here today just to say shame on 60 Minutes. Shame on CBS. Frankly, shame on Norah O'Donnell, who I really like and respect and have for decades. But she's got to please her bosses too, right? Actually, no, she doesn't. They can all walk away. They can all walk away. It does have an impact. It does send a message. So at this point, Trump owns CBS. And he's tearing up our Constitution. So if he continues with and the people around him with this talk of a third term, I hope that Barack Obama is willing to start, kind of putting it out there, if we can't beat him, we'll just join him and then we beat him once we join him. And that's what we need more of. That's what we need more of. Because again, what we're doing might work around the edges, but it's not getting the job done. The impact of little operators like me, and then the bigger operators and the bigger podcasts, and guys like Marc, Elias at Democracy Docket, who I talk about a lot. There's a lot of people. There's hundreds of us out there doing our thing on independent social media, and collectively we make a difference. But we should not have to work this hard to get this information out there, to do the work that needs to be coming out of the Capitol building every day, not by Chuck Schumer, but by somebody that is designated and hired as the very high level spokesperson, counselor to the leadership, or whatever you want to call it. They wouldn't be a mere press secretary. Somebody with gravitas. Okay. And that content would be put out every day. So then people like me and the podcasters and YouTubers and everybody on social media and everybody back home, we all are singing from the same hymnal. That's how you get a message out. And I'll tell you, it saves you a heck of a lot of money with advertising. And what we could do is set this up so that we do this for the next year, so that by the time you are paying for the advertising, it's going to have 10 times the impact that is otherwise going to. Because once they start spending the money for the ads and everything, they're starting from scratch. And as I've said before, you do these daily briefings, it will be rocket fuel for fundraising. Rocket fuel. But again, I'll leave you just with a reminder of the good news that President Barack Obama has decided to get more involved. That's good news.